blasting, billowing, bursting forth with the power of 10 billion butterfly sneezes.
I'm Tom Bain, and this is Wine, Money, and Song. If you're interested in wines and wanting to find out the best values, please subscribe. So this is part B of planning and the actual designing and construction of your wine cellar. Now, as you know, I've had 4 different wine cellars. But the last one and the one in California, I really had to build from scratch. And I had to actually have help with it, especially the one in California because of the earthquakes there. We had to secure the walls so that if we had a rumbler, I wouldn't lose all the cases crashing in on each other. My cellar in the Boston region, I called 2 contractors to go to the site and to plan out the plans and to lay everything out, and both contractors didn't show up. And I only had a few weeks before the wines were being delivered, so I did it myself. I insulated the area with fiberglass bats. I sealed them in with rigid board, fiberboard, and the walls I did R30 and the ceiling around R45. If I had to do it over again, because it was 15 years ago, and spray foam wasn't where it is now. Everyone uses closed cell spray foam, which I would recommend because it has vapor barrier and it's much tougher. And it's a great insulator and also makes your walls stronger. But I didn't use it back then. But as I said, if I would do anything now, I would definitely use closed cell. And what you have to understand, you're not going to own these wines for a few months. I've owned some of my wines for 40 years. And you have to find a really stable environment. And as I said before, you really need the proper temperature, very small range, and a moist environment. Now, right in front of me, I have a map of soil temperatures in the United States. And they're very different. And the reason why they're very different, the soils are different. If you're in a sandy soil, it'll be warmer than having clay and rocky soil. But it's also the climate you're in. The further north you are, the cooler it is, obviously. And you don't have to refrigerate or worry about the heat so much as you do as you go south. And generally, once you go south of the Mason-Dixon line, you know, you might have to refrigerate. But if you're 5.5 feet below ground, subterranean, generally it's around 57 to 55. And the better you insulate, the transfer of heat is very, very narrow. You don't get the transfer of heat back and forth. So that's why it's so important to insulate and to be very tight. And it narrows the heat coming in and the coolness going out. And you want to keep it as small as range as you can. And as you fill up your wine cellar, the more cases you have, the harder it is to move the temperature in the wine cellar. Now, if you think about it, why is that? Well, your bottles absorb thermal mass, it's called. And if your bottles are 55 degrees, and let's say you have 500 cases, it's very, very hard to change those 500 cases quickly. If you have 50 cases, 10% of that, the temperature change will be much more rapid. It'll be thrown off. But the more cases you have, the better the insulation. They give you that thermal mass of not changing temperatures quickly, whether up or down. And that's key. And to keep a cellar packed is a good idea if you want that thermal mass effect. And I've learned that. So we're going to go to my wine storage facility, and I'm going to give you some hints on how I laid out my cellar and how it may help you with yours. In your wine storage facility, very important. That's where a lot of leaks come from. Temperature can seep in and seep out. If you see this door, it's a regular door, but I have 4 inches of styrofoam board here, which probably gives it a 35 R value, 30 R value. And when it shuts, it seals the room. You can feel it suck the air out. And that's key, how tight that is. And you see how thick that is. Very important to have the opening of your storage facility very tight. Okay, I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to talk about temperature gradient. Now, it's about, to the ceiling, it might be 7.5 feet. No, about 7 feet to the ceiling. At the bottom here, the bottom 2 cases are generally 3 to 4 degrees cooler than the top cases from the ceiling. That is a big difference. And why is it different? Well, there's no movement of air. And as you know, the properties of cold air is it sinks to the bottom and warm air rises to the top. So how does that go into your thinking? So you put the wines on the bottom that you want to be the coolest, the wines you're going to keep a long time. And as you see, these are first growth Bordeaux's. We got Chateau Petrus there. We have Le Mission Haut-Brion. We have all the Haut-Brion. Those are wines you keep a long period of time, and you want them at the coolest temperatures. And also you want Champagne near the bottom, and Burgundy also, and white wines you want to the cooler areas. Now, what wines are you going to store on top? And it's 3 to 4 degrees difference, which is a difference. You know, that's a difference if you're going to be how fastly they age. And so the wines you keep up top are wines you're not going to age a long period of time, generally. Or wines that you're going to drink in a few years. Or wines you're going to open up soon. And it's key. So remember, there's no movement of air here. The only movement is you going through and moving some cases once in a while. I want to talk to you about the bins that you use. Now, as you see my storage, I have some fancy racks there, and it's nice to show. But what I have in my mind is I want to store the maximum amount of cases at the most ideal temperatures and humidity. And I want to have access to them. Now, these industrial steel fixtures, if you notice, are only too high. So if I want to get to Latour Haut-Brion 2005, all I have to do is move one case out, and I could slide it out. And each one of these fixtures fits about 33 to 35 cases, all right? And it's 4 feet wide, and it's about 6.5 feet up. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. So 5 times 35. So let's say it's 160 cases on this wall, all right? But be careful. Now, I said how it's easy. Now, I have cases just piled up here because I didn't have room to put another 4-foot structure there because of the corner. So if you notice, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 high. Now, if I'm going to get the lunch barge on the bottom, I got to move 10 cases. Those are 50 pounds each. And at my age, that's a lot of moving. And that would break my back. So the advantage of the shelves, these industrial shelves, is you can move the cases around much easier. Now you lose a few in storage, but the ease of getting wines, accessing the wines, very important. And as you see here, I have shelves here too. So you have to keep at least 3 feet, 30 to 36 inches, so when you slide it out, you have room. If you're too close, you're going to bang into the cases. So you got to leave room to move the cases out and have elbow room to get them. Very, very important. And I want you to think very, very carefully. I know people want a beautiful looking cellar. And to me, that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me, the aesthetics don't matter. I want functionality, and I want the wines to be in the best environment to them to age. And I don't need to show the wines off, and I don't need to spend thousands of dollars on pretty looking racks. You know, these racks do the job for me, these industrial racks, and I've been very happy, and they're incredibly strong. They can hold thousands of pounds each shelf. So I'm very, very happy with that. Now, looking at the ceiling, you see the firm boards that are faced with aluminum foil, and you see the cracks in between. You see the fiberglass there, and I have them screwed in, and I have R30 walls, which have fiberglass on the inside, and then I have foam board over it. So it's around 30 now. I wish I would have done a little more. I wish at the time I did the closed cell insulation, but I didn't. And the temperature here goes down to about 53 degrees in the winter. And in the summer, it may go to 60, maybe 61 for a week or two. And that's acceptable to me. Is it super ideal? No, but I've had these wines a long time, and anyone who's tasted wines out of my cellar know that my wines are stored impeccably. And it's really worked for me. But the key is very slow temperature change, and keep it within that 55 to 60, you're in good shape. And if you have to refrigerate, I know a lot of people do it just in case, in case they have something goes on, that you have a heat spell or something, and if you're in certain parts of the country, you have no choice but to refrigerate. But what you worry about is, what if you have a power blackout? Then you have to have a backup generator. So it's a box of worms. And being below, subterranean, we're about 6 feet under here. We're about 6 feet. And we're going to go around, and, you know, I have bins, and the key thing is to be able to get to all these cases, to get to them, easy access. And as I said, this is a bad thing where there's 11 cases on top of each other. And if I want to get to the bottom, it's going to, I'm going to break my ass doing it. And I'd rather not. I'd rather just move 1 or 2 cases. Makes my life much easier. Much easier. And I talked about thermal mass. Look at all these cases against each other. How hard is it going to be to change the temperature? I'm trying to think how many thousands of bottles are here. it's probably close to 10,000 bottles, 12,000 bottles. And the thermal mass here, everything is packed so tight, there's very little air to warm or to chill. So to change the temperature in the wines takes a lot. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So we roam around. Let me put a light on. You come around the bend. Now, in this facility here, I have windows, which I filled in that are behind there. There's a window there and there's a window there. And it's about 5.5 to 6 feet below ground. But I super insulated it, put board over it. And what I did on the outside of this storage facility is I put bags of white marble chips around it to serve two purposes. One is to reflect any sunlight, not absorb it. They're white and they reflect it. And also as a vapor barrier. I put plastic and then I put the chips on top of it. And that keeps any moisture away. And I've never had a problem. It's almost 20 years I've had it in this facility, and I've never had a drop of water. And thank God for that. Thank God for that. And I would recommend to people who do have cellars, you should put something underneath the bottom. You should have some skids or something, just in case you have a little water, that the cases don't get wet. But I haven't had that problem. And also what I have here is I have a very small ladder. Now, for me to get these cases down here, I have to go up on the ladder. So, now, have I ever had an accident here where cases come falling down? Yes, I did. And I had styrofoam magnums plugged in all the way to the top, and I was moving cases from the other side, and I pushed, and they just went over and I just heard crashing. And it was probably 6, 7 magnums broke, and my heart broke a little bit too. But it was my fault, and it's part of a cost of doing business. And as you see, I can go up here, and I can move the cases here. And I'm reaching a point in my wine collecting career where it's getting harder and harder for me to move 12-bottle cases. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to split them up into 6-bottle cases, where it's much easier for me to move. Something I'm conceding to old age, and you should be very careful. Some of your wines are very expensive, and I'm trying to think. I've maybe broken, outside of that one incident where I knocked over all the magnums, I maybe broken 2 bottles of wine. One was a Provence Rosé, and one was an inexpensive Bordeaux. So I've been very lucky. I've been very lucky. But as you see, this is really tight. And it's really well insulated. I put metal tape on the seams, and it's really worked out. And how do you know when it works out? You taste the wines. And if the wines, some of my wines are 30, 35 years old, they're in excellent, ideal condition. And I have very good provenance. My cellar is known for great provenance. And I think I covered most things. And as I said, I have champagne below here. I have some Cristal, I have some Brollinger, some Pau Roger, some Tattinger. Very, very cool area. And this is how I constructed my wine storage facility. And it's given me great enjoyment, great satisfaction, and pride of ownership, but it's kept my wine safe, and it's kept them in a great environment. And it's something you should really make the investment if you're really serious about collecting wine and storing wines. Be earnest in how you store your wines.